Hi everyone, how are you? I'm back with little Wren here that I talked about in my last video when we unboxed her. And I want to get her ready to go to her new home, wherever that's going to be. But I need to take her apart and fix her eye and make sure she doesn't have anything else going on that needs to be repaired. So I haven't even done anything with her yet, so I thought we would do it together on the video. So let's take off all her clothes and we will inspect her body and take her apart. So I am going to probably give her a hair treatment and change her hair back to the way it was when I first sent her. I love her little braids, but we're gonna let whoever gets her decide on that. She really looks amazing for how long she's been gone. She's missing a screw, but that definitely could have been my fault. I sometimes forget to put the screws back in when I'm finished with a doll. A lot of times it's because I think that I might potentially need to open them again. So sometimes I forget, so we will find her another screw. We'll take her little braids out. Her hair's a little frizzy, which was the other reason why I want to give it a little treatment and get it back to its original look. But really, she looks really good. I think she might have a small rub on her lip. It's really hard to tell. So I'm thinking about adding a little bit of gloss just in case. I don't think it's actually rubbed any of her paint. She looks really good. She might have one little rub there on her cheek. But I really don't want to spray her again and go through all of that. And I don't really think she needs it. So with Middies, they are a little bit difficult to open, to reopen. I really don't like opening them once you get them together. So sometimes a little bit of prying is necessary. But you want to be really, really careful if you do any sort of prying. What I've found is that when you stick it in there, you don't need to pry. You just sort of, I don't know if you saw that, but you just kind of move it around a little bit and it usually will pop it open without too much prying. And the main reason is you don't want to put a bunch of pry marks on the outside if you can help it. But sometimes it's unavoidable. So it looks like that piece must have gotten lost and somebody fixed it up, so that's wonderful. I know she was opened a couple of times by others. A couple of them were to fix her eye, and I'm not sure about anything else. So we're going to go ahead and take her apart, make sure everything is good. I notice she has a small mark back here. I don't know if it's a pencil mark. It's not super noticeable. We'll see if it washes off, and if it doesn't, then we might very, very carefully sand it. We'll see. I'd rather not cause any damage that requires spraying. So we're going to take our little faceplate off and get a real good look at it. I think it's great. There is a weird line going right there, and now that I'm closer to it, I do see a tiny rub there and a tiny rub there, so I don't know, we might end up spraying her again. I'm not sure what that line is, if it's a scratch or a pencil mark. Feels like a scratch. So, because it's a really fine scratch, we might go ahead and just spray the plate as it is and see if it fills it in. And it might cover up those rubs too if we add a little bit. So we might end up spraying her after all. But let's take a look at her neck. Her lashes still look pretty good. But what happened with the eyes, if you watch the video where I was working with her, I had not glued the eyes in. I had used putty, and the problem is they came loose, and when they came loose, it was hard to get them back in, or they just didn't stay very secure. So they do need to be glued. So we are going to take her apart and put those back in correctly, as long as the eyes are not damaged at all. I don't know if I need to make brand new chips. So we'll just go ahead and push them through the back. You can see all the putty still there. It's still soft. And actually, I think we will, well, let me see how these ones were made. But the way that I'm doing eye chips for Middies now is I make them slightly larger than the eye hole, because if there's enough of a ridge when you push them down in there, then they can kind of squeeze in there. If you make them exactly the same size as the hole, then they push right through the front. And I think with these ones, I probably am going to have to remake them. Because they're just too close to the hole. So I think we'll pause for a minute. I'm going to go wash out the eyeball, because this putty has kind of gotten everything sticky, and I'm going to remake the eyes, and then we'll come back and we'll put them in together. So let's do that. All right, so I made her some new chips, and this is what I was talking about. I don't know how well you can see, but I leave a little ring around the edge, and that holds it from going through the eye. I also decided to go ahead and print in metallic paper. It's the same eye design, it's just in metallic, because I really like that metallic paper. I'm starting to like it more and more. So in my shop, when I sell Middie eyes, I generally sell them for the fake Middies, so they come not like this. But if you're doing an authentic and you want to get chips from me, just let me know that you're doing an authentic so that I can cut them like this for you. Because the way that it works is when you put them down in there, you kind of have to position it on both sides with your fingers from the front and the back. But once you get it where you want it, once you kind of push it, you don't want to push too hard because then you push through. So you just want to push it down in there as firmly as you can without going through. And then instead of doing the putty like last time, we're going to put glue in there. I'm going to use Elmer's glue, like a regular tacky glue, not super glue. I would not use super glue on this, because if you make a mistake or you want to change the eyes, you most likely will need new eyeballs because they will be permanently glued on there. And honestly, I don't think that they really need a heavy glue. They just need to not move. So what I do is I just use some Elmer's glue and just dab it around the inside, around the edge, and then go ahead and put the piece that you cut off when you open them down in there. And I don't know how well the glue will hold that piece, but it should stay in place. And then check and make sure the eye looks good, and then I would let that dry before you All right, so we'll set those aside and let the glue dry before we start putting it back together. And then as far as the back plate, while I was working on those, I did get that pencil or pen mark off. I just washed it off, so the back plate is good to go, no issues. I got the hair wet and combed it out. Her hair was a little bit crimpy anyway, so it's gonna be nice and shiny. And then the face plate I sprayed. I'm a little bit worried because the more I got a good look at it, this is a scratch along here. And I don't really want to leave it there, so I think I'm going to try to very carefully sand it. But since I just sprayed the plate, I don't want to do that yet. I'm going to wait a little while until it's dried really well. I also want to layer in a little bit of blush to cover up those rub spots. So the faceplate's going to be a little bit more than I expected, but it's not too bad. It's still not too bad. So let me let this dry a little while, and when I come back, we will see about sanding that scratch as best we can. All right, so I've let her dry a little bit. She's still a little bit shiny, but that's because I prefer to use semi-gloss Mr. Super Clear. If you're trying to figure out what kind to use, I use the matte on all the layers except the last layer. I do semi-gloss. It kind of gives the skin a more dewy look. It's not as shiny as gloss, but it just looks a little bit more natural to me. So what we're gonna do about this little tiny scratch. I have some sandpaper here in 2500 grit. It's basically the highest grit you can get. And what I'm going to try to do is just sand along the scratch and hopefully even it out so that we can then spray it and cover it up. I've done things like this before and it's worked and not caused more damage, but you have to be very careful, especially if you're going to be sanding anywhere near blush, or if you can tell the scratch goes through a couple freckles, so we might have to repair those. And so I'm going to turn on my light that I don't like to have on because it makes shadows, but without it I can't see very well. And we're going to do our best to cover this scratch up. Otherwise it's just going to be a part of her because it's really kind of hard to tell how deep it is. And I need to get a good grip on her, and I don't really want to hold on to her face. So let's see, let's try. And I don't even know if this sandpaper will work, so I think we'll try down here first. So it actually looks like the scratch is in the Mr. Super Clear and not in the plastic. So I think I'm not going to worry about doing it on her chin where she has some paint and some freckles. I'm just going to try to sand out where it's the most obvious. And it looks like that's already removed it. It's a little tiny bit there. And so now that we've sanded it, we kind of have a spot with some color that's gone now. So we're gonna have to cover that up, which shouldn't be too hard. I'm not sure where we left off, but I got a phone call, so I had to stop for a minute. I did go out and spray her. We have removed this scratch except for a little bit on her chin, which I'm not going to deal with because I don't want to remove those freckles because it's right through the middle of them. But the rest of it's gone. However, we have a little bit of a rub now, so we're gonna have to add some color there to disguise it. And so I'm thinking about adding maybe some darker shading there to kind of hide that, since it's not really an area that I would put blush. So I'm gonna get a little bit of brown and we're gonna try to hide that a little bit. And other than that, she's looking really good. So I think once we get these little rubs hidden, then she'll be good to go. Apologize for having to have my light on. It's a much sunnier day than it's been in the past couple weeks, but it still kind of comes and goes. So it's pretty well hidden already. I'm gonna spray her one more time. And I think that ought to be good. Most of the rubs are now pretty well hidden. So I think she'll be good. So let's spray her one more time and see if we're done. All right, for the most part, you cannot see it anymore. The scratch is gone. There is a little bit of a rub, but it's not very obvious unless you hold it in a specific light. So she looks pretty good. I'm going to add some gloss to her lips, because gloss, if you don't know, gets removed once you spray matte on top of it. So if you want the lips to be shiny, you do not want to spray Mr. Super Clear over it unless you use semi-gloss. So we're going to add a little bit of gloss to her lips. And then we're going to go ahead and put her back together. Let me go wash this brush so it doesn't get crusty. And we are ready to put her back together. So with the eyes, they're a little bit confusing to put together. So I may not remember right when I do it, although I've been doing it now a couple of times and I've gotten better at it. I had someone just the other day ask me advice on putting it back together because they were nervous about taking it apart. And I will admit it can be confusing, but you will know that you want them to go this way because that second little knob down there, it was what goes into the mech that makes the eyes move. So they go on like this. And then you screw the screws in. The best thing you can do is take a photo of the mech before you start taking anything apart so that you can remember. And there are 4 screws, but it looks like we're missing a couple. It should be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm not going to worry about it too much. I'm just going to put one on each side. Should hold it fine. If I can get this one in there. Then the iMac goes on right there, and there are 2 screws for that one as well, and they go down in the top areas. Again, small screws, a little bit hard to get in place. I would definitely make sure you put both of these ones in. Then we have the screw that holds on the scalp, and that one I would definitely get started before putting the scalp on. So screw it in a couple of times and then get the scalp on. It's much easier that way. I don't think any of the screws I'm using are her original screws. I don't know what happened to them. Let's see. What's going on? This one's a little bit harder. You kind of have to wedge your screwdriver down in there. Kind of flattened her hair out. It's still a little bit wet. Make sure her eye mech works. Her eyelashes are kind of flat, which I don't really like. I'm wondering if I can somehow get them to stay up. She looks pretty good, so let's finish putting her together. I'm thinking I might try to use like a piece of cloth, probably not a rubber band, but something to kind of bend her eyelashes up, because they kind of cover her eye. I don't know. I mean, I know they were kind of like that from the beginning, but I'm wondering if there's something I could put in there to kind of bend them. Otherwise, she looks really good. So let's put her hat on and we'll get her redressed. I don't see anything with her body as far as nicks or being dirty or anything like that, so I don't think we need to do anything there. She's got all her original clothes that I sent her in, which is wonderful that nothing got lost, which can happen so easily. So I think she's pretty much ready to go. I just need to get her photographed with all of her stuff and let the group know that she's all fixed up, all freshened, and ready to go to her new home. It's a little bit bittersweet saying goodbye since we've been seeing so much of her over the last year. So there she is, ready to go, all fixed up. We'll see about her eyelashes. We might mess with them. So thanks so much for watching as always. Bye-bye.